Todd Monken might be the key that unlocks the biggest coaching shift in the NFL this year. When John Harbaugh refused to part ways with Monken and was fired as a result, it wasn't just a moment of loyalty. It was a career-defining move that now has ripple effects in Cleveland. The Browns were first in line to request an interview with Monken, and insiders believe that was no coincidence. If Monken comes, there's a realistic path for Harbaugh, a known Browns fan, to follow. That's not a rebuild. That's a regime change. This isn't about fixing an offense. It's about replacing the foundation. Harbaugh's potential reunion with Monken would be more than nostalgia. It would install Super Bowl-caliber infrastructure tailored to elevate a quarterback like SHEDEUR Sanders from day one.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Schwartz locks down the defensive front. Rees and Pitcher present flexible, modern offensive minds. The Browns are engineering alignment, not just among coaches, but around a singular goal, developing a championship quarterback from scratch. The Cleveland Browns just detonated the quietest bomb of the NFL offseason. No splashy tweets. No cryptic player posts. Just one move after another that, together, point to something far bigger than a basic head coaching search. This isn't just about finding someone to replace Kevin Stefanski. This is about building an entirely new infrastructure with one clear mission: prepare for SHEDEUR Sanders. Yes, that's SHEDEUR Sanders. The Browns haven't drafted him yet, but every move they've made screams long-term quarterback development. Their target isn't just a coach, it's an ecosystem. An elite quarterback-centric culture designed to do one thing: maximize the potential of a young, smart, high-upside QB. And if the league isn't paying attention, it should be, because Cleveland is positioning itself for a full-scale identity shift. And it starts with 5 names: Dan Pitcher, Todd Monken, Tommy Rees, Jim Schwartz, Aiden Dulund. 5 formal head coaching interviews. On paper, it looks like a typical due diligence process. But when you zoom in, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Every one of these names ties back to quarterback development or offensive innovation, except Schwartz, who's there to stabilize the defense while the offense goes nuclear. Dan Pitcher is probably the most obvious giveaway. The man was Joe Burrow's quarterback coach during his most critical development years. His fingerprints are all over Burrow's growth into one of the league's most technically polished passers. He didn't just coach Burrow, he helped build him. And that kind of resume becomes invaluable when your front office is circling a young QB like Sanders. Pitcher also has a personal connection to Cleveland GM Andrew Berry. They work together in Indianapolis. That kind of relationship matters. It means communication is already tight, philosophy is aligned, and trust is baked in. You don't interview someone like Pitcher just because he's available. You do it because you're trying to create a support system for a very specific kind of quarterback. And Sanders fits that profile perfectly. Then there's Todd Monken. His name carries weight for a different reason entirely. In fact, Monken's value is so high that John Harbaugh literally lost his job trying to keep him. That's not speculation. That's what happened. The Ravens' front office wanted Monken gone. Harbaugh refused. Harbaugh got fired. End of story. You don't go down swinging for just any coordinator. You do that when the coordinator is the engine behind your team's entire offensive identity. Monken helped engineer Lamar Jackson's 2023 MVP season. When Jackson got hurt in 2024, the offense still held up. That's not luck. That's scheme. That's adaptability. That's coaching. The Browns were the first team to request an interview with Monken. First. Not after the dust settled. Not after the headlines. First. That's not a coincidence. That's intent. That's a team that sees where the league is going and is trying to get ahead of the curve. And here's where it gets wild. If the Browns land Monken, they might land Harbaugh too. Yes, John Harbaugh. Super Bowl champion. Longtime Ravens icon. Reportedly a lifelong Browns fan. The door is open for a return, especially if Cleveland allows him to bring Monken with him. It's not outlandish. It's not clickbait. It's a real possibility. And if it happens, it instantly makes Cleveland one of the most stable, forward-thinking teams in the league. Tommy Rees is another fascinating candidate. On the surface, his 2024 performance as the Browns' offensive coordinator looks rough. The offense struggled. Points were hard to come by. But when you take a step back, the context changes everything. Rees was operating under Stefanski's stale playbook. He didn't have autonomy. And he was working with a quarterback in Deshaun Watson, who, frankly, hasn't looked like himself in a long time. Rees had no shot to prove what he could actually do. But despite all that, the Browns are giving him a serious look. Why? Because Rees has the resume. He studied under Nick Saban at Alabama. He understands structure, discipline, and how to develop quarterbacks in high-pressure environments. That alone makes him valuable. But combine that with his youth, just 33 years old, and you start to see the bigger picture. He's a long-term play. Someone who could grow alongside a young QB like Sanders, evolving the system around him. And then you've got Jim Schwartz. No, he's not going to be the head coach. That much seems clear. But his interview serves a different purpose: to reinforce loyalty, stability, and continuity on the defensive side. Schwartz built a top-4 defense last season, despite receiving little to no support from the offense. That's not easy. That's elite coaching. More importantly, he's still under contract, which means Cleveland can block other teams from poaching him. That matters, because while they're overhauling the offense, the Browns need their defense to stay elite. Schwartz is the glue that holds that side together, and his willingness to stay, even after being passed over for head coach, says a lot about the internal alignment happening behind the scenes. The wild card? Aiden Dund, Seattle's defensive coordinator. His inclusion isn't about headlines, it's about thoroughness. The Browns are evaluating minds from both sides of the ball. They're not rushing. They're not defaulting to retreads. They're turning over every stone. That's how serious they are about getting this right. And here's what ties it all together. Every single candidate has a link to quarterback excellence. Pitcher? Developed Burrow. Monken? Built an MVP offense around Lamar. Rees? Trained under Saban, quarterback development factory. Even Schwartz, while defense first, understands how to scheme in a way that complements a developing offense. The strategy is loud and clear. Cleveland isn't just hiring a head coach. They're engineering a system designed to fast-track the success of SHEDEUR Sanders. Whether or not they officially draft him doesn't even matter right now, because the infrastructure they're building would benefit any young quarterback. But Sanders? With his poise, intelligence, and command, he fits this vision perfectly. And timing couldn't be better. The AFC North is wide open. The Bengals still lean heavily on Burrow, but their depth has cracks. The Steelers have no real quarterback direction. The Ravens just fired the most stable coach in the division. Suddenly the Browns, yes, the Browns, have a chance to become the most complete organization in the AFC North. All they have to do is follow through. Land the right coach. Build the right staff. Draft the right quarterback. The pieces are there. The vision is clear. The only question now is whether they'll finally connect all the dots. Because if they do, it's not just a bounce-back season. It's not just making progress. It's a full-on redefinition of who this franchise is. And if they don't, then it's back to the same cycle of misfires, scapegoats, and squandered talent. Right now, Cleveland is standing at the edge of something massive. A transformational offseason that could rewire the future of the franchise. And for once, it doesn't feel like a desperate grab. It feels deliberate, calculated, focused. So what do you think? Is this the turning point Browns fans have been waiting for? Will they go all in on Sanders? Is Harbaugh really coming home? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let us know who you think should lead this next era. And if this breakdown gave you some clarity on what's really going on in Cleveland, hit that like button, share this with your football group chat, and subscribe to stay locked in. Because this isn't just a rebuild. This is the Browns trying to change the entire game. There's a fine line between bold and reckless. And right now, the Cleveland Browns are dancing on it like their legacy depends on it. Because it does. This isn't just about coaching interviews. It's not just about a quarterback. It's about identity. For a franchise that's been the NFL's running punchline for most of the last 2 decades, this is a shot to flip the narrative in a single offseason. And the craziest part? They might actually pull it off. Let's be clear. The Browns are done pretending. There's no more hiding behind, we're building something. They are building something, and for the first time, it looks like they know exactly what that something is. 5 coaching interviews. Not just any 5. 5 with very specific pedigrees. 5 that all serve one common purpose: developing a quarterback who can finally carry this franchise out of the wilderness. They're not bringing in culture guys. They're not interviewing defensive drill sergeants. They're not fishing in the recycle bin of failed head coaches. They're looking at proven architects of quarterback success. And no matter how you try to frame it, that doesn't scream random search. It screams SHEDEUR Sanders. Let's stop pretending this isn't about him. Every sign points in that direction. And while the Browns obviously can't say that out loud until draft day, their actions are saying it for them. When you go after Dan Pitcher, Burrow's developer, you're not just exploring offensive minds. You're blueprinting a developmental plan for a quarterback who processes like a vet and plays like he was born to lead a huddle. You're looking for someone who can fast-track a rookie into a technician. When you're first in line to interview Todd Monken, the guy whose scheme turned Lamar Jackson into an MVP, you're not just chasing playbook flash. You're chasing someone who can build a system around a player's strengths and still keep it unpredictable. Someone who adapts, who adjusts, and who doesn't just coach QBs, he evolved them. And when you still take a serious look at Tommy Rees, even after your offense ranked near the bottom in 2024, you're showing that you can separate a man from the mess he inherited. That you understand context. That you're not fooled by box scores when you're trying to figure out if someone knows how to build. And Rees does know how to build. He didn't get his shot in 2024. Stefanski's system hogtied the offense, and Watson's decline made it worse. But Rees didn't come out of nowhere. He was molded under Nick Saban at Alabama, where quarterback development is treated like science. That alone makes him valuable. But pair that with his age, his potential, and his buy-in to modern quarterback play, now you're talking about a long-term fit. All of it is lining up around one strategy: quarterback first, everything else second. Even Jim Schwartz's inclusion. On the surface, it feels like a courtesy. But it's more strategic than it looks. The Browns aren't interested in replacing Schwartz. They're making sure he stays. Why? Because you can't overhaul the offense if your defense starts falling apart. Schwartz led a top 4 defense in 2024. That's elite production, despite being weighed down by an offense that couldn't score. Retaining him gives the Browns something almost no other team with a top 5 pick has: balance. You build your offensive dream team around a young quarterback, and you don't have to worry about what's happening on the other side of the ball. That's rare. That's how you win fast. And when you're in a division that just watched the Ravens implode, the Steelers flounder, and the Bengals hold on for dear life with a banged-up Burrow, timing is everything. Let's talk Harbaugh again, because that storyline isn't going away. The man was fired, because he wouldn't get rid of Monken. That's not rumor mill stuff. That's league reality. And if Monken comes to Cleveland, the door for Harbaugh is wide open. A Browns fan since childhood. A Super Bowl winner. A coach who just got pushed out by the same franchise he led for over a decade. If that reunion happens, if Monken walks in and Harbaugh follows, it instantly becomes one of the boldest moves in franchise history. Not just because of who they are, but because of what they bring. Monken designs. Harbaugh leads. Schwartz locks down the defense. That's not just a staff. That's a war council. You give that group a quarterback like Sanders and a top 5 pick to shape the future? That's a potential dynasty in the making. And here's where it gets brutally honest. The Browns don't have time to screw this up. They've already wasted prime defensive years. They already bet the house on Deshaun Watson and came up short. There's no patience left. This next move has to be the one. But that's also why it feels different this time. Because nothing about this coaching search looks like a team guessing. They're not panicking. They're not throwing money at the biggest name. They're targeting specific skills, offensive architects, quarterback developers, people who've proven they can mold, adjust, and win. That level of precision? That's not panic. That's a franchise with a vision. And yeah, that vision might include moving on from Watson, whether now or down the line. Even if his contract complicates things in the short term, the writing is on the wall. The Browns are building something new, something Watson wasn't brought in to lead. Whether they bench him, trade him, or phase him out quietly, the future isn't centered on him anymore. The future is being built for someone younger, someone faster, someone more in tune with today's NFL. And that someone looks a lot like SHEDEUR Sanders. It's not about hype. It's not about headlines. It's about fit. It's about building a team around a quarterback the right way for once. And every move this front office has made so far tells us they're finally done winging it. They're going methodical, intentional, focused. And that should terrify the rest of the AFC North. Because if the Browns hit on this, if they land the right coach, the right coordinator, the right quarterback, they're not just contenders. They're a problem. They'll have an elite defense, a quarterback tailor-made for the modern game, and a coaching staff that actually works together. No more piecing things together year to year. No more stopgap solutions. Just cohesion. From the top down. That's what winning looks like in the modern NFL. And sure, it's Cleveland. We've seen this story before, right? The off-season optimism, the finally our year energy, the hope that gets chewed up by week 6. But this feels different not because it's louder, but because it's smarter. For once, they're not chasing headlines. They're chasing alignment. And that's where real change happens. So now, the question isn't, will the Browns mess this up? It's, will the rest of the league realize what they're doing before it's too late? Because if they land Monken, and they land Harbaugh, and they draft Sanders, it's over. They won't just be good. They'll be built to stay good. Built for 10-year relevance. Built to finally make the leap from punchline to powerhouse. And when that moment hits, if it hits, the rest of the league won't be laughing. They'll be scrambling to keep up. What's happening in Cleveland right now isn't just a coaching search. It's a strategic reboot of how the franchise wants to exist in the NFL. And the fact that no one's screaming about it yet? That's exactly why it's so dangerous. Because while the rest of the league is busy chasing headlines or plugging holes, the Browns are quietly constructing something that could change everything. They're not looking for a head coach. They're trying to build a head coaching philosophy. One that prioritizes quarterback development, organizational continuity, and long-term sustainability. It's not flashy. It's not loud. But it's one of the smartest pivots we've seen from this front office. And if it culminates in drafting SHEDEUR Sanders, we'll all look back on this moment and realize this wasn't about panic. It was about planning. Let's go back to the candidate list for a second. 5 interviews. Not one of them feels accidental. Dan Pitcher is probably the cleanest fit if the Browns want someone who can grow with a young quarterback. His time with Joe Burrow is textbook NFL development. Start with raw ability, mold it into consistent elite play, and do it without forcing. That's the path you'd want for Sanders. A QB known for poise and decision-making, who thrives in structure but doesn't need to be reined in. Pitcher gets that. And the tie to Andrew Berry can't be overstated. This isn't just about coaching compatibility. It's about organizational chemistry. When your head coach and GM already speak the same football language, you're not wasting time on internal politics. You're moving faster than everyone else. Now, add in Todd Monken. If Pitcher is the methodical builder, Monken is the artist. What he did with Lamar Jackson was surgical. He didn't just design plays. He built an offensive environment where Lamar's talent could explode without compromising the system. That's hard to do. It requires vision, trust, and the ability to create structure around creativity. Which, again, sounds a lot like the kind of ecosystem you'd want for someone like Sanders. And let's not forget, Monken was protected by John Harbaugh to the point of Harbaugh's own firing. You don't find that kind of loyalty unless you're bringing more than just a good playbook. Monken is respected. He's trusted. And he's in demand. The Browns moved fast for a reason. They won in before other teams realize what he could unlock. And if you think Monken might be a package deal with Harbaugh, you're not wrong. It's all lined up. Harbaugh, a proven leader who built winning culture in Baltimore. Monken, his trusted offensive mind. Schwartz, the defensive veteran who already has the locker room's respect. That trio would give Cleveland a top-tier leadership core from day one. Experienced, aligned, and dangerous. Especially if the centerpiece of that system is a quarterback they can fully mold from the beginning. Because here's the real key. This isn't about fixing someone. This isn't about salvaging a washed-up veteran or squeezing one more year out of a contract. This is about starting clean. Starting with someone like Sanders, someone who hasn't been burned by bad coaching, hasn't been asked to play hero ball with no support, hasn't been thrown into chaos. The Browns are trying to prevent that chaos before it starts. And that's new. That's growth. The front office is looking at the AFC North landscape and realizing something most people haven't processed yet. The balance of power is shifting. Burrow is still elite, but the Bengals are vulnerable without him. The Steelers? They're still searching for a quarterback identity. The Ravens? They just blew up their own structure. This is the moment. And the Browns, of all teams, are moving like they know it. They already have a defense that can win games. They already have pieces on offense that, with the right system, can become weapons again. What they haven't had is direction. Not just someone to call plays, but someone to build a vision. And every coaching candidate they've brought in has a part to play in that. Even someone like Tommy Rees, who most people dismissed based on the 2024 offense. But the Browns aren't doing that. They're looking past the results and into the structure. They see the Nick Saban influence. They see a young coach who knows how to operate inside development systems. They're asking whether Rees could thrive once he's no longer buried under Stefanski's limitations and Watson's regression. That's forward thinking. Even Aiden Dund, Seattle's defensive coordinator, represents more than just a backup option. His interview shows that the Browns are doing due diligence across all styles. They're making sure they don't miss anything. But ultimately, all roads point to the same conclusion. The Browns want a quarterback-first identity. Whether that quarterback is SHEDEUR Sanders or someone else remains to be seen. But the fact that they're engineering this before making the draft pick. That's how you win. You don't drop a rookie into a mess and hope he figures it out. You build the situation before he arrives. And for once, Cleveland is building something. Slowly, intentionally, smartly. No desperation. No spin. They're moving with purpose. They're locking in defense. They're assembling minds who specialize in quarterback elevation. They're cleaning out the old systems and replacing them with something built for longevity. And if they land the right combination, if it all comes together, this franchise could flip the script entirely. From cursed to competent. From tragic to terrifying. Because if the Browns go into next season with an elite defense, a visionary offensive mind like Monken or Rees, a head coach who's aligned with the front office, and a rookie quarterback like Sanders with actual support, that's not just hope. That's a blueprint. So let's hear it. Are you buying into what the Browns are building? Who's the right hire for this team? And do you think SHEDEUR Sanders is worth building the entire structure around? Jump into the comments. Hit that like if you're seeing what's really happening behind the scenes in Cleveland. Share this with anyone still acting like the Browns are flying blind. And make sure you're subscribed. Because if this coaching carousel ends the way it's shaping up, this won't just be the most shocking move of the offseason. It'll be the one that changes everything.